Hey, Renee, Marsden, and welcome to the Tick Bootcamp podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is
We
awesome.
we are really blessed to have you. We've been following you for a long time, and I'm glad we finally been able to connect and match up our schedules so we can have you come on and share your journey with the folks who follow us here on Tick Bootcamp.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been following you too.
Well, thank you. So, Renee, why don't we first begin by introducing you to folks? Not
Sure.
only your background as a mom, but let's talk a little bit about your coaching and your talk show.
Oh, okay. So what I'm currently up to?
Yeah.
All right. So I started I guess the brand, the talk show, everything under it is called Bright Life Co. And I think it's really cool because the bright life came out of the darkest places, as a lot of people I think here could know. So when I was bedridden and going through all of that journey, I just had it on my heart to give back from that journey. So I would draft out episodes, think of guests I wanted, just kind of put together a show that's for people that were like me. That I think when you're bedridden and you're so isolated, you just want to feel like you're hanging out with your girlfriends and stuff again. And then also I wanted to dive into the hard parts, but then show, okay, how do we have a bright life no matter what our circumstances? So I do coaching. I've done one-on-one, but I'm excited to do more group stuff. I think that's really my wheelhouse of fun. And then I am a certified Pilates instructor, and I taught dance these past few years, so I definitely got in remission. And I used to tour as a dancer on tours with artists, different artists, and professional cheerleading and all the things. So when I got to dance again, now I want to help with fitness too. That's more for autoimmune because I realized when I was going through Lyme, everything was just kind of it made me feel like I was still on bed rest when it was like yoga and things like that. And I wanted to do kind of something more invigorating and life-giving, but doable, to kind of rebuild strength in your body and show you that you're still alive and you have purpose. And then I used to host talk shows, so I created a talk show. So we're releasing and launching, I think in September is the plan. Um, and my co-host, she's awesome. She has rheumatoid arthritis and some different autoimmune that she goes through in MS. And she has three boys and she's pregnant right now. And then I just had a baby. So we're celebrating life, and she still has the hard part going on, and I'm more in remission in a healthier place I never thought I'd be. So just giving back from that.
So congratulations on all of that, but in particular, congratulations on the baby, right? So you have a 3-month-old baby.
Yes, she's such a blessing. I call her my gift from heaven, so we named her Nevaeh, which is heaven backwards.
Oh, cool. That's a very creative name. So thank you for sharing that part of your current experience. So
Yeah.
let's walk it back. Talk to us about where you grew up and what was your early life like?
Okay, I grew up in South Carolina, actually, so Carolina girl, and I'm such a beach girl. We had my grandparents had beach houses in two different places. So my favorite place was the coast. And my mom was a choir director at church. So I just grew up kind of singing and dancing and acting. And I never stopped that. I ended up having a whole career in all those things. It's been pretty sweet. I didn't know you could do that when I was little. But I probably got involved in dance when I was around 4 years old. And then I was in all the choir performances and solos, and I loved showing off and performing. So I was very, very lively, very energetic, very outgoing. Yeah.
So it sounds like Renee, it sounds like you were a healthy child. Were you a physically healthy child?
I think so. I found out later we did some testing and it showed that I had pandas. So that's a kid disease, as we know. So I had Lyme as a kid, somehow just kind of in there messing with my brain. I struggled a lot brain wise. Yeah.
Okay, so let's
And then I was sick. I was sick a good bit. I was put on antibiotics every time, so that wrecked my gut. But I learned all these things, of course, way later.
so were you and it's not uncommon, of course, because doctors are giving antibiotic prescriptions, especially to young children, for almost anything. You have a sniffle, you have a cold, they give you antibiotics.
Yeah, that's how it was.
Yeah, when I'm a bit older than you, but I've shared with many of our guests in the past that I seem to have more bubble gum, antibiotic medications when I was a kid than not, because it was just, I certainly overprescribed that during my generation. It sounds like even younger folks like you had that same experience. Um,
Yeah, I did.
so were you getting these prescriptions really just because you had little childhood bugs, or was
Yeah,
there
every
something
little
else?
thing I had a prescription for it. And I had a brain injury as a baby. Like I rolled off a changing table and I'm trying to think what happened after that. So I ended up being like cross-eyed. Like I guess they called it strabismus. So I had a eye surgery when I was pretty young, and I also found out now that that was brain related. And then PANDAS is a brain autoimmune disease related to Lyme. So that is my journey, was brain health and Lyme.
During your childhood. So your vision for yourself during your childhood was to be a dancer and a singer, and that ultimately became,
Actress,
yeah,
and yeah, and I
actress.
did every play and I sang every song and I was super creative. My brain did function differently, I would say. I had a lot of different hyper anxieties, and my emotions were probably a little more intense, which helped with acting. Um, but yeah, I would feel disassociated a good bit, but I didn't have a brain to compare it to. So to me, I thought that was the norm. I mean, I had no way not to know as a kid.
So let's talk about the about ticks and your experiences in the outdoors during your childhood
Oh
in
yeah.
South Carolina. All right. So you did share with us that that your happy place is at the beach, and your grandparents had a couple of houses that you were blessed to be able to enjoy. Were you an outdoorsy kid, and do you recall having any contact with ticks during the course of your outdoors experiences?
Yeah, so we also went to the lake a lot and hiking with my dad, and all these kind of outdoor adventures. We'd play outside all the time. My sister and I were very outside kids. So we play with the neighborhood friends and rollerblade, just all the things. But growing up in the South, we were taught how to take ticks off our body. Like I was taught to use an alcohol swab, make it let go, then pull it off. So, I mean, I definitely got bit by ticks. And I remember having one in my hairline. It was buried in my neck, like, and my hair is really dark, actually. It's like almost black, but it was hard to find the tick. um, but I had them all the time. My dogs had them, I had them. So, definitely saw them.
Yeah. So now you shared with us that culturally you were taught that ticks existed, that they should be removed from your skin, and
Mhm.
that there was a process for doing that. Was there any post-bite care that you were suggested that you should utilize? Was there any suggestion that you should notify your doctor about
No,
anything like that?
no, this was just my aunts and mom and grandmas and being like, this is what you do for a tick, get it off your skin and go
Yeah.
about your day. So I don't think anybody really understood that it could be worse than that. They had heard about Lyme disease, but at that time, I think it was only known as like it's an acute infection. It goes away with medicine. Um, if you have a bullseye thing, but they never really checked me. My family never really checked for that. It was more just everybody gets bit in the South by ticks.
So
So
it was just a part of your culture, and of course, our listeners know
yeah,
I grew up in a tick endemic community. I was bitten by ticks my entire life, and like you,
yeah.
we had the wives' tale advice about what you do when a tick bites you, and mine was a little bit different than yours. What we were told was that we should put Vaseline on the tick, and that the tick would then back out, and that's when we should use the tweezers and pull it out. Was it
Oh, okay.
as it turns out, that's a wives' tale. A tick does not back out when you put alcohol on it or you put Vaseline on it. Or some people
Wow.
have told us in the past that they were told to put nail polish on the tick. But as it turns out, that's a wives' tale. It does not have an impact on the tick coming out. In fact, it may agitate the tick, and that could actually cause some problem that you wouldn't otherwise have. So it is interesting that so many of us had the same, sort of cultural training about how to deal with ticks. And as it turns out, we were given bad information.
Yeah, and I basically was told to treat it like it's not a big deal. I mean, it was just kind of part of life. And when you get them, you take them off, and they were just another bug,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
far as I was concerned.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not true, and thankfully the folks who are following our podcast, have some additional steps that they know they can take. And actually, on our website at tickbootcamp.com, we have actually a tick bite blueprint where we give you a step-by-step guide on the things that you should do if you do find a tick biting you. So,
Oh,
um,
that's so good. I'm glad you do that.
so let's talk a little bit more about now. So you're growing up in the South. You're enjoying the outdoors. You're singing. You're dancing. Um,
Hmm.
you're well connected to a Christian community. Your mom is one of the leaders in that community. Uh,
Yeah.
how do things progress for you? Where do things go? For you as you're progressing through middle school and high school. Where are you going as you grow up?
Yeah. I would say that I was hypersensitive. A lot of the panda symptoms, I've actually kind of helped some different friends of mine recognize their kids have it just because now I'm more aware. But I wasn't aware at the time. And so I would say kind of more hypersensitive as a kid, which again did great in the arts. And then my brain would focus really well when it came to choreography and musical things, and not so well when it came to mathematics and more the logic side of things. Uh, yeah, it always kind of struggled on a different end of the brain. So I've learned kind of that autoimmune. In a way, that was the good that came out of it. It made me super creative, I guess, how it affected my brain. But it can affect everyone differently. But yeah, I took things pretty intensely. Like if my parents were upset about something, I'd be like, okay, I need to run away. I can't, like my nervous system would just, I couldn't deal and cope well. So I was a
So,
happy kid, but yeah, I recognize that now more.
okay.
And I would zone out a lot. My teachers would talk about how I was zoning out in class and how I wasn't listening, but I could repeat everything they were saying. They just thought I was zoned out. So it was really weird. And if I was drawing, I could kind of take in what people were saying better. Just different things like that that I know now was more disassociation and brain inflammation. But at that time, I had no clue. It was just my brain.
So, were you treated by any doctors? Did your parents think that you needed any medical intervention or psychological intervention while you were going through these challenges?
Not until high school. So in high school, I got dropped. I was a cheerleader and I was the main flyer because I was little. And so they were throwing me up in the air and they broke a lot of rules to see how high we could get me to go. And it was something called a basket toss. And I've heard these things are not allowed anymore in cheer, and that's a good thing. But they threw me and I landed flat on my back on a weight room floor on my head, basically. And it was from about, I think they said 14 to 18 feet up, and then fell flat on my back on the weight room floor. So temporarily paralyzed, things like that. My dad showed up and they thought I was paralyzed. And after that accident to my brain, I started struggling with depression and anxiety, and everything seemed kind of dark and traumatizing a lot. And so, yeah, we saw some people then, and they diagnosed me bipolar and manic and all kinds of different things. And the medicine would make me worse. Lithium made me kind of like a zombie. And so they were trying their best. They just didn't know what to do. And then the diet I was eating, that wasn't healthy at all. That was fried everything, butter everything, and a lot of fast food actually on the go because I was a dancer and had to get to the studio. So and then your cafeteria food. So nothing was really a healthy environment outside of my working out and exercising that I did all the time, and because I was in all the companies and took it very seriously, was really driven, and overall really happy kid. But yeah, in high school I really started struggling, and I went through some traumatic things, and that culminated and made it worse for me.
Yeah, I guess the good news as you're traveling down this journey with you is that you did engage in a lot of movement, and we know that movement is really good for your immune system. It's really good for detoxification, and it's a really important part of health. But I guess
Yeah.
the downside to that is you were a cheerleader, and what most folks don't know,
Yeah.
they as a cheer parent, I had two daughters who were actually high school national champions cheerleaders, and both were college cheerleaders. I didn't understand that that is the most dangerous sport, that there are more injuries in cheerleading
I
than
had so many.
there are in even football or hockey, which are very dangerous sports. The number
Wow, I
one
didn't know
sport
that.
for yeah, the number one sport for injuries and very serious injuries is cheerleading. And those of you who are flyers, as my oldest daughter was, of course, have the greatest risk of at least height related injuries. Although bases and backs also. Especially before they changed the rules, where they were doing a lot of the basket tosses and double downs that are all now
Yeah.
illegal.
Full
Uh,
out. Yeah.
a
XL,
lot of
XL guards.
a lot of the a lot of the bases and the backs were suffering head injuries because the flyers were hitting them in the head as they were coming down, right? So
Oh, yeah.
it's a very dangerous sport, and the number of head injuries and brain injuries from that sport are it's just horrific. Uh,
Yeah.
so
We
talk,
were we were high school national winners as well, so it was very serious and we took it as a class. You had to take it as a class in school as well, so it'd be like 4-hour practices. And it was intense. We'd run several miles and all kinds of training. But I was the main flyer, so every base that was coming up to learn how to throw you, I would have to practice. So I had to learn how to fall on my head correctly. Like,
yeah, as
basically
if they
which
were
meant don't break your neck.
yeah, as if there is a correct fall on your head. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
Talk to us about your immune health, especially after you suffered that brain injury. And, one of the patterns we've observed here over the last 5 years of doing this podcast is
Mhm.
that head injuries and brain injuries seem to go hand in hand with Lyme disease. And when Matt and I first started doing this podcast, and we would hear about these head injuries and these concussions that so many of the people with Lyme disease were suffering. We were asking ourselves the question, like, what happens after you get Lyme disease? Are you just so unlucky that a piano falls on your head every day? I mean, what goes on here? What is this connection between concussions and Lyme disease? It's very, very common. So talk to us about your experience and
Oh, yeah.
with the head injury, and what impact do you think that had on your immune health?
Huge. I started having a lot of fatigue and a lot of disassociation. Um, I'm actually struggling a little bit right now. Normally my brain's good and not very inflamed, but since I have mastitis infection going on currently, it is a little harder. So you might get a little more of my brain, my old brain on this podcast, that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. But yeah, I've I've had 10 concussions that I say I count because those are the ones I went to the hospital for and things. And my doctors later down the line said they all count. So all my falls on my head that I learned how to do and all that. But I've had some major brain injuries. But yeah, that one I noticed that I was more tired. I kind of just would fall asleep at my desk in school. I just didn't have energy anymore. I was starting to feel really fatigued a lot. But I would give it my all still and dance and cheer and throw myself all the way into it. But I did have to school myself at home. I think it was about 2.5 to 3 months after that injury, because it did take me down pretty good.
So talk to us about how your health declined and how you ultimately got to your Lyme diagnosis.
So I had the brain injury in high school, and then I had a car accident. I think like 2 car accidents, and one where it flipped, rolled. Well, it rolled, yeah, on its side. But the airbag went off in one of those, and I don't even remember that happening. Um, then I was a pro cheerleader, and we went into overtime, and it was really exciting. And you do this one dance by Tim McGraw song, and you throw your head down. and I hit the railing and I tumbled, fell down the bleachers. And I was like, well, a hockey place is the best place if you're going to break your nose, you know? And the fans carried me to the infirmary. It was on the Jumbotron, I'm pretty sure. And I got in there and didn't know who the president was. I kind of mixed in, I think, Marilyn Monroe and Bill Clinton. I have no idea. I just put some names together. And then these kids were in there and they were my biggest fan. And the mom was like, will you still sign her poster of you? And I was like, sure. I couldn't even see. I was just signing. I had that injury. I just had a lot of further head injuries. When I started healing from that one, I had a ski boat accident and we were tubing behind the boat. And I was an actress at the time. Oh, okay. On my birthday, I was walking across the street. I got hit by a car
Oh my
walking.
goodness. You can't get a break.
No, everybody, all
You
my
need to
friends
stay
said
away
I should
from
just
cars,
wear a
Renee.
helmet.
Car
You should just,
accidents, rolling over, getting run over by cars. You have to stay away from cars.
I know. All my friends say I should just wear a helmet everywhere I go. Like, cause it's pretty insane. Um, but I'm trying to think, what is the order of that? So I went on tour. I made the dance tour with Taylor Swift. I actually got on that one as a dancer. So I was her backup
Congratulations.
dancer for a little while. Yeah, that was huge. It was like I think 1,500 people tried out, 3 girls made it, 3 guys. I didn't think I had a chance. But that was very exciting. And then I was like go from tour and it was my birthday. We are kind of celebrating and I wasn't and so I was walking across the street, I got hit by the car and had a major concussion. So, and my friends, I had a feeling I shouldn't, yeah, this is first. I'm trying to put the brain injuries in order because there's one right after the other. So I got hit by the car, walked across the street after tour, and I I went downhill pretty good, and I was trying to still audition for dance things after that. And I blanked. I was in front of people from my tour. I was in front of other dancers in Atlanta. I was for the CMA Awards and I'd done them before and I was so excited. And usually I was a choreographer. So my brain was like on point. I could actually choreograph and catch on fast. And we were in the audition and it was here's all my friends around and all these people I know that I admire as amazing dancers. And I blanked in front of everyone and I've never done it. And I ran out of there and I was just like, almost crying. My agent called and I didn't want to tell him about my brain injuries because I thought he wouldn't represent me anymore. So I was like, I don't know what happened. I'll work on it, you know. And then he pitched me for another a music video, country music video. And I was like, okay, I'll show up. So I showed up. It was easy dancing. So I made that one. And then while I was there, they're like, has anybody done any acting? We need an actress for the video. And I was like, oh yeah, I've done acting. I did theaters and I love it. So they threw me in the acting. And I actually prayed to God because I was like, I can't catch on to choreography anymore. I was like, my dance ability, I don't even know if I can do it. And I was like, but I still look the way I do. I still have the desire to do these things that I do. And I was like, so please take it away if it's not what you have for me, because it's breaking my heart at this point. Because I was known as Renee the dancer. It was like kind of my identity, honestly. And then I made this video and they put me into acting. And I quit. I started doing a lot of acting and getting callbacks for acting. And so I let dancing go and I somehow my brain worked in acting, but I didn't even know that I was memorizing lines. I would just show up and be able to do it. It's pretty grace of God craziness, I would say. But I let my dream shift a different direction, and it was hard to let go of that and start something new. And then I had a feeling I shouldn't go on tubing on the ski boat with my friend. And they were like, you're not a dancer anymore. You don't have those rules in your contract. Like, you can do it. You just act. I was like, all right. And I jumped on the tube. We collided skulls with each other and I bounced off the water. And that's the concussion that threw me into chaos, my whole body, everything. I went downhill fast after that one.
Renee, you and vehicles just don't mix. I just like has nothing to do with what's in your contract. You just need to stay away from vehicles, right? They roll over with you in them. They run
They
over you. It's so I
they
just
don't
want
like
to.
me.
I just want to, I have to be a dad for a moment, and I have to strongly encourage you, regardless of what's in any of your contracts, you stay away from vehicles, Renee. Do not go on tubing on boats. Stay away. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't work out. It's pretty bad. Um,
So
and
how
and
did
and also behind the scenes, other than the brain injuries, my health started dipping around 19 years old. So you're taking that brain injury in high school. And then my past with, I guess, pandas, which I discovered later, and getting bit and all the things and getting fatigued. But by 19 years old, I started being hypoglycemic. At that time, I went into professional ballroom dancing, and I was almost passing out. I was starting to kind of talk backwards. Um, it was really weird. I started getting digestive issues
this is at
after the
19?
that was at 19, and so then the accident on the lake was I was probably 28. So you're talking like 10 years of behind the scenes going to a lot of different kinds of doctors, struggling but not telling anyone because I had my career. And I just didn't want to give sickness the time of day because it was holding me back. So I was like, oh, I can deal with it on the side. I'll do my side hobby, like
Yeah, yeah.
just fight through it. And I was going to doctors and being like, hey, I'm severely fatigued all the time. I'm tired all the time. Like I feel like something's wrong. They're like, oh, you're healthy, you're dancing on tour, you just need to be 12 shot. Um, and I was trying supplements. Like we started realizing that the psychiatric drugs were a big mess. They made me way worse. My brain got worse. I was out of it, hallucinating. It was bad. So I never did those again. So then I went more a supplement route. I was eating healthy because I was teaching Pilates, teaching dance. I learned how to eat different than the South. And I lived in Nashville in my adult years. I moved out there at like 20 and choreographed musicals, had these whole careers, all these things. But behind the scenes, I was battling a lot and going to doctors and trying to figure it out, doing every supplement, doing smoothies with all the nutrients. And yeah, it was
So
rough.
Renee, during this almost 10-year window that we're focusing on,
Yeah.
you said you saw many doctors, and I'm assuming most of the doctors that you treated with were focusing on your brain and your brain injuries, and not really focusing on any other basis of your fatigue. Um, did any of the doctors at any point suggest that there may have been an alternative basis for your fatigue? And toward that end, anyone suggests that perhaps you had Lyme disease and that's why you were so fatigued, and it wasn't necessarily because of the your brain health.
Yeah. So you would think they would have paid attention to the brain injuries, but concussions were kind of thought of the same way a tick is. Like at this time, at least, like if you had a concussion, you just lay in bed for a few days until it kind of passes. And if you just have a contusion on your brain, which is like a bruised brain, like all the different things I was diagnosed with on the scans, they were like, okay, now you're fine. And I knew I didn't feel fine, and my body did not feel fine. And I'm sure a lot of people that have had Lyme have not only had brain injuries, but trauma. I think all those things play a part in taking your body down. And I had had different kinds of traumas as well as the physical brain injury traumas. And so they would focus on those. They were like, okay, I think you just need therapy for this. I think you need, think this is all in your head. You're healthy, you're fine. I remember going to the ER quite a bit. My dad was like, if you go 6 months without having to go to the ER, like I'll throw a party. It was like, because I was having like racing heart and tachycardia type stuff and hard to breathe, air hunger, and they were like, "Oh, it's a panic attack." And I was like, "But I wasn't panicking. I was sleeping when this went down." So no doctors would really take me seriously or really believed me, and they all thought it had to do with traumas I experienced or head traumas I experienced.
So
And that was the focus.
yeah, so Renee, and in fairness to your doctors, especially with the medical system that we have an acute care system. We don't have a chronic care system. And
Yes.
of course, generally what's happening, especially after you were involved in as many accidents as you were, whether it be car, boat, or other,
Cheer.
was there
Stadium.
was there a train accident too, Renee? I mean, you had every other vehicle, right? And then of course you're you were a flyer, and we've already sort of built out how dangerous that is.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Dangerous.
of course, because you were engaging in high risk activities, because some of your social activities, not just your athletic activities, also were seemingly high risk. It does,
Sometimes, yeah.
yeah, it doesn't surprise me that doctors in an acute care system are going to focus on those traumatic events. And then you shared with us that you also had some other personal trauma that you were dealing with, some emotional trauma you were dealing with. And of course, it doesn't surprise any of us who are listening, any of us who are talking with you, and I'm sure the folks who are listening to this, that your medical professionals would be focusing on that
Yeah,
that trauma and what impact that was having on your physical and emotional and brain
yeah,
health, right? So,
yeah.
but of course, what everyone knows because they're listening to a Lyme disease podcast that there was something else in the background, that there was something else going on that the medical professionals couldn't focus on. So, tell us more about that.
Yeah, so since they didn't pay attention to chronic, like you're saying, and they couldn't figure me out, I had one hospital doctor tell me, he was probably one of the nicest ones I saw at the ER, but he eventually was like, you know how there's horses and then there's like a zebra. You're definitely a zebra. So it was like there's so much going on and there wasn't a way to pinpoint why it was happening. Some doctors had a good heart and were trying their best, but they couldn't get it. And they were like, I think you just need, some trauma and some healing from that and therapy, honey, and psychiatric medicine or something. And then anti-anxiety, whatever it is. And so they were always trying to go to the meds, but the meds don't do anything. And so then I would see doctors who were trying to help my gut and started paying attention to supplemental things and okay, why are you not absorbing nutrients? Why are you not why are you just kind of wasting away and getting very bloated and looking pregnant? Um so after the boating accident, I think it had been a year of like doing all this post concussion stuff at a professional place that sees a lot of the football players here and stuff. And they were like, "You're not getting better, you're getting worse." And I just didn't know what to do. I was like, I'm doing all the things. I've been in the room in the dark, no stimulation, nothing. And they're saying I'm getting worse. So I just prayed and I was like, okay, God, like if you I was like, I just want to live at this point. So I'm not scared to go wherever you want to send me. I'll go wherever. I just want to be able to use the gifts you have given me. And I don't want this to be the end of my life. And I started seeing a chiropractor who helped me quite a bit and enough to move to LA. So that was a big move I made. And then I started acting out there. But that's where my health really tanked. That's when I went downhill big time. That's close to when I got diagnosed. But at that point, I was seeing a lot of doctors in LA were a little bit more skilled in seeing all different parts of the body, looking more into chronic healing, with naturopaths, different things like that. So I was seeing a lot of different functional medicine people, and they were trying to get to the bottom of what was going on. And meanwhile, I had a friend, she's one of my best friends now, but she had Lyme disease, and I was part of this girls, what's it called? Uh, it was like a fitness girls fit club in LA Fit Girl Club. That's what it was. And the head of that, she was like, "You and Kathy are both from the South and you both have weird health issues. Y'all should meet. You should be friends." I was like, okay. So I met her and she has Lyme. And she just kept telling me, she was like, "I really think you might have it. I wouldn't tell someone that." And I was like, "No, I got something more serious than that. Like, I've heard about that. That's from a tick. I've heard about those." I really kept ignoring her. And then there's one point where I exhausted pretty much every option, and I decided to not be afraid and just look at what Lyme disease is, what the symptoms are. And I had almost every single one that I read. And I read one that had a huge list. And it had disassociation, it had all the brain stuff I had, it had all the digestive stuff I had, it had the heart stuff I was having. It had so much. And I had a stack of medical bills. I had actually collapsed in my apartment in LA. The landlord found me on the floor. My friend was FaceTiming me at the time, and they took me to the UCLA. This is before I looked into Lyme. And I was there for 7 days, and they sent every specialist. And that's when they paid attention to head traumas and all the things. And they couldn't find answers. And I was like, "You found me collapsed, and now you're telling me to go home, and I live alone, and you're telling me to go home." And it was terrifying. And I went home and I got worse. I started, kind of hallucinating, disassociating, didn't know if I was real. I was actually on a Lifetime movie set. I was acting in a Lifetime movie. And I feel like this is very Lifetime-like because those are kind of spooky and scary. And anyways, on the Lifetime set when I first went out of my head big time and didn't know where I was. And after that, I was terrified. And that's when I looked at Lyme disease. I had all the symptoms. I prayed about it and I went to the naturopath I was seeing and I said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And she was like, "That would make sense." And so she sent me to somebody who's known for working with Lyme and a real specialist in LA. I went to her and I had a stack of hospital paper, every medical thing I could possibly gather together, all my brain scans, everything. And she just listened to me, took one look at me, and said, "Honey, I'm so sorry it took you this long to get here, but you're in like latest stage Lyme disease and we need to start treatment right away." And I said, "Okay, so do you want me to come next week?" And she was like, "No, you need to start today. We'll run the blood work for peace of mind so you and your family know that this is what's going on, but I already know, so we're starting today." I didn't know she knew at that time how seriously sick I was, but she actually cried. I think it was 2 years later when I came to meet her when I was doing treatment out in LA again, or 3 years later. She cried because she didn't know I'd be alive anymore.
Wow.
And I had no idea she knew that I was that sick.
So Renee, let's Matt is going to take you through this part of your journey in a moment, but I just want to reflect on a couple of things with you before Matt takes you to your takes you through your post diagnosis journey. You had this friend from the South who
Yeah.
had Lyme disease. She had a Lyme disease diagnosis. And
Yes.
initially she said to you, "Hey, you sound like you have Lyme disease." All right. And that's not uncommon in this podcast. We know especially since our friend Phyllis Bedford calls Lyme disease the supermarket diagnosed Lyme disease, where you're more likely to be diagnosed in the supermarket from someone else who has Lyme disease or a family member of someone who has Lyme disease than you are from your doctor. Uh,
Yeah.
so you had your supermarket diagnosis, or in your case, it was the fit girl gym diagnosis. Um,
Yeah.
when she said to you, you sound like you have Lyme disease, or as many people in the community say, you sound limey. What did your spirit say to you when you heard that from your fellow Southerner in LA?
Uh, so she would even tell you herself, her symptoms are very different than mine and more mild than mine. So seeing where she was at, I was like, well, the mine's got to be different than that because of how sick I was, how I couldn't hold down food, I wasn't absorbing nutrients, I was just kind of wasting away, um, and bloat, all the things and brain stuff. And so I really thought this has to be something brain related, something different
So
because
the
our
reason
stories were different too. So I just thought this is
And
different.
that's what I want to get to. I mean, obviously your story is a little bit different, but your friend
Hmm.
saw in you what she believed to be Lyme disease, right?
Yeah.
I guess the reason I'm exploring this with you is because my sense is that the way you were raised culturally and the way you were taught about ticks and Lyme disease was that it was really an acute illness that you can get over pretty easily, right? And now you
Yeah.
see someone else who has symptoms that may be chronic, but certainly nowhere nearly as serious as yours. So because you didn't think the disease was a very serious disease or debilitating disease because of the way you were raised as a Carolinian, I can't even spell it, Carolinian,
Carolinian.
yes, you just rejected the thought because you were much sicker than what you thought someone would be if they had Lyme disease.
Yes. Hmm. And but it's stuck in the back of my head. She said it and it never left. Even though I really thought that can't be it because we're so different. And I thought that wouldn't just be this serious, but it stuck with me for sure. Yeah.
So
I
so
didn't look into it. I think it was like another year before it was after
okay.
that hospital visit and then going completely out of my head. And I was like praying because I thought I always wanted to get married and have a family. And I just saw that just disappearing. And then I was losing my mind, literally losing my mind. I was diagnosed later with autoimmune encephalitis as well. So you've seen brain on fire and all the things. I went through quite a dark, terrifying journey with my brain.
Sure
Um,
did.
but it was so scary that I just thought my whole life was going away in front of me.
So
And
that's the next thing I want to
yeah,
explore because there are a lot of young women that listen to this podcast. In fact, most of the people who listen to this podcast are female. And one of the first things that we hear from folks as an emotional reaction when they are diagnosed with Lyme disease is they ask, can I have a child? Is this something that I'm going to
Yeah.
have to lose in my life as a result of a Lyme disease diagnosis? Now, do you think a part of you was trying to avoid this Lyme disease diagnosis because you thought it might have an impact on your ability to be a mom?
I think I was just scared to look at it. I thought I felt like I was dying, and I just didn't want to know if that I wanted it to be something easier. I wanted it to be something they could fix quickly. I was so scared. I was just terrified. Because I was losing myself, like my brain, my body, everything was falling apart. And I remember thinking, like with a puzzle, like your body doesn't just fall apart. Like there has to be something that caused it to start falling apart. I started looking back at 19 by being diagnosed with hypoglycemia and passing out episodes, or like crashing episodes, not fully passing out, dissociation, like all the things, and then gut and hair falling out. It was just like one thing after another. And I was like, your body doesn't just fall apart. That's not what it's created to do. And I was like, something is fighting against me. And I wanted to find what that was. Yeah.
So Renee, you finally went to a naturopath who you were treating with, and you brought up the Lyme to the naturopath at that time. What is it that caused you to bring up the
Yeah.
Lyme finally after that 2 week, I'm sorry, that 7 day stay in the hospital, and now looking for
Um,
some kind of solution? What caused you to think Lyme at that point?
um, I'm trying to think. So after the hospital stay, actually it wasn't the naturopath yet. It was the craniosacral therapist that I was seeing. It was really helping me a lot. I guess it got inflammation down in my brain. I had no idea it was doing that, but he was doing that. And I could think better, and I was clearer after I would see him. So I knew that I was having some progress when I'd go to him. But I remember, yeah, just being on the table, I'd talk to him a lot because I'd see him several times a week, and for the concussion. And I remember just telling him, I was like, hey, I have a friend who mentioned she thinks I might have Lyme. He's like, that makes sense. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, Lyme could cause this brain stuff. It can cause all these symptoms you've been having. And he was kind of like a dad to me out there in LA. Like he was older and just really fatherly towards me and cared a lot about me. And when he said that that made sense, I was like, well, maybe I should look more into this. And then that's when I went totally out of my head on that film set, doing the Lifetime movie. And that was after hosting at the Faith-Based Film Awards, the Movie Guide Awards, on the red carpet, interviewing people, like being on it with my brain. And then all of a sudden coming home, being on a movie set and not knowing if I'm real or who I am or if I'm there. And I don't remember filming. Um, I've seen the movie. I did the lines. I have no idea how, but I was in it. So yeah, it blows my mind. I feel like I feel like God just carried me, to be honest.
So Renee, you said that your doctor ultimately did test you for Lyme disease. What type of testing
Yes.
did you do, and what were the results that had come
She
back?
did the co-infection test, so I guess that one's a lot better because Lyme didn't show up, but all the other co-infections did. Babesia showed up, and later what was found out, um, this would be tracing back, but I did the tour Taylor Swift dancer thing, then the car wreck thing, the getting hit by a car, not car wreck, getting hit by a car. And then after that, I did missions in South Africa. I left for 6 months and did YWAM. So I was in South Africa and then Hawaii, or Hawaii, then South Africa. And actually, in South Africa is when I had the highest fever I've ever had. And I was vomiting and I was sicker than I've ever been because I didn't run fevers ever. And I know that in Lyme, that's common that your body doesn't run fevers to fight infections. I never ran a fever. I didn't remember running one as a kid. I just never ran them. I ran the highest one I ever ran in South Africa. I was sicker than I've ever been. And then my hair started falling out. Then digestive issues started happening. And so that was before going to LA. But anyways, down the road, what we found was this Babesia was actually a South African form of Babesia. We found it in the DNA testing when I was in remission is when I finally saw that that was the killer. That was really the storm in my body was definitely this babesia from South Africa and Lyme and all the co-infections. But yeah, it was a very tough journey.
So Renee, do you remember being bitten by a tick when you were in South Africa?
No, I just remember we played, what is that, like a flashlight tag thing where you're in the dark at night, and this is in South Africa. They have like pythons and stuff. I don't think we were thinking this through. Cobras. They have cobras and all kinds of animals. And we're like, over here from Hawaii doing YWAM, we're like, we're just gonna play this game in the brush. Like, that's wise. So I probably got bit, doing that. But I was helping with anti-human trafficking stuff out there. I was teaching dance out there. I was leading women's groups. I had a huge heart for women's ministry, and I was trying to heal my heart because I had been through a lot of trauma, and I was trying to kind of deal with that, and then my health, and I really was just kind of like, okay, God, how do you love me if you're letting all these bad things happen? And I went out there to really dig down deep and see, you know, to deal with that.
So Renee, was your Lyme diagnosis before or after you had taken the mission trip to South Africa?
After, yeah, a couple years after.
Okay.
This is before the walking. This is after the walking across the street hit by a car before the boat. Right in between.
Okay. Well, and actually, I don't know why I messed up that timeline. Maybe I'm having some brain fog because of
I'm
course
sorry for
it was
jumping. I wish
because
I
no,
had it
you were actually bringing
in
us
front of me.
back to the mission trip because you had discovered from the Lyme
The
disease
babies, yeah, that's the
that
sickest I ever got. So I think I already had Lyme, pandas, all these things, and then on top of that, got hit again in South Africa and had the brain injury right before. And they say when you have a brain injury like that, it opens the blood-brain barrier. And so then when you have anything, infection, toxins, mold, whatever, they go in the brain.
and of course,
So
that's a problem with all the head trauma. Every time you have head trauma, right?
yeah,
You're weakening the blood-brain barrier, right?
yes.
So before Matt takes you forward with your treatment plan, were you diagnosed with having any other what you were calling co-infections or any other tick diseases?
Um, well, they thought I had MS. A lot of them thought I was going into MS, which I know a lot of people with Lyme get told that. I also got told I was going into Parkinson's. Like I just had so much brain stuff. Yeah, it was rough. It was a tough battle of getting diagnosed with a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I'm asking you from the Lyme disease
The
side.
infections,
Yeah, were you diagnosed with any other infections other than
yes,
was
Lyme, Babesia, Ehrlichia. I don't know how to say that one.
Ehrlich-
Bartonella. I had all
Ehrlichia? Yeah,
Ehrlichia. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, I had all four of those, and then I had cytomegalovirus, streptococcus, a few others. So they were all in there wreaking havoc.
Yeah, and your
Oh,
immune
and mono.
right, and we see all these viruses and parasites and bacteria that your immune system had been managing could no longer manage it, and when you were doing the test, all of these various microbes had cropped up, right? You were crashing, your body was crashing.
It was crashing, yes.
So Matt is going to now take you through your three treatment journey. Welcome, Matt.
It's about time, Rich. My goodness.
Sorry, Matt. I had a lot of story there, I
No,
guess.
it's all Rich though. So I have so many questions about your journey, Renee. So the first thing I
Yeah,
want to comment on is you mentioned that you got diagnosed with the South African form of Babesia, and you kind of can pinpoint that because of your time in South Africa. But I just
yeah,
wonder, all of your things that you had earlier on in life, I have to think that you probably had multiple infections, multiple bites, Lyme or Ehrlichia Bartonella at a young age,
I
possibly
agree.
contributing and commingling with your concussions, your health issues, your gut issues, your
Yep.
disassociation. They weren't all just concussion symptoms and brain symptoms. They were all concussion and brain symptoms plus tick-borne disease. I mean, do you think
Yeah.
that's true?
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah, especially since I was diagnosed with pandas too. So I think I always dealt with it.
Yeah, and pandas being extremely common in children with Lyme disease. We hear this all the time from specialist researchers and
Mhm.
doctors and patients and mother advocates that are in the community that children with Lyme disease often have PANS and pandas. And as they treat the infection and bring the immune system back into homeostasis or balance, the PANS and pandas gets better as well. So we've heard that a lot on this podcast. So let's talk about, before we get into your treatment, I just want to ask you a question because we've had it's very difficult to describe what disassociation really is, right? For somebody who hasn't been through it.
Yeah.
Often
Scary.
hear like, oh, I didn't feel like myself. I felt like I was just in another world. But can you do your best to describe that word? Because as somebody who's experienced it as well, I don't think if you've gone through it, you can truly appreciate how scary and weird that experience is.
Terrifying. I can actually give an example for me other than the movie thing. But there was one time when I was healing, I moved home with my parents for a couple years to do treatments. So I had to leave everything. But I went to the zoo in a wheelchair with my niece and nephew. And I remember just being in the bath or going to the bathroom because I freaked out. So we were like in the penguin exhibit, which I love penguins. And I love animals. I love the zoo. So we're there. And all of a sudden, I started not knowing if I was alive or dead. I literally just felt like I'm not here. I'm not on this planet. I don't know where I am. I don't know if I'm real. I don't know who I am. And it terrified me. And it happened at home, but it hadn't happened out and about, like with family around me like that, like kids, my niece and nephew. And I didn't want to scare them. And I was scared. So I went to the bathroom and I remember just sitting and shaking in the corner in the zoo. And then my mom found me and I was shaking and she was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I don't know who I am. Who am I?" And she was like, "You do this, it's gonna be okay. You're my daughter, you're Renee, like I'm here." I remember pushing my dad away from me and thinking he was a stranger when he was trying to help me and getting scared of him. I mean, it's heartbreaking, the stuff that I
Yeah.
experienced in my brain, and some of it is probably from the autoimmune encephalitis, not just the neural Lyme. Um, because I would hallucinate and would disassociate quite a bit, where I just didn't know reality anymore or who I was, and that was every day. I dreamed of feeling present again, and I was so afraid of how unpresent I was. That for me as a Christian, I took scripture and I said, okay, I believe you're true and I don't know what's true anymore. So I'm just going to bank my life on the fact that this is my identity. And that's what kept me going because it was very hard. And I'm thankful that my parents were there and like they took shifts next to my bed for 24 hours a day for I think 2 or 3 years of treatment. Um,
Yeah, but thank you for being so open and vulnerable to share that because that is not an uncommon Lyme experience. I mean, my father and my mother and my grandparents literally were my caretakers, and people that go through it are ashamed to speak about it. But I think it's more common than we think, and I'm happy that you're sharing it because people that are going through it now, you and I are on the other end of it, need to hear that to know that they will get through it, they can get through it, and they got to just keep pushing forward and taking the
yeah.
appropriate steps to get into a state of healing. But I want to challenge you with a question because oftentimes we hear from doctors that the most simple thing is usually the thing, right? It's not like three things at once. It's not two different diagnoses. But I feel like when it comes to Lyme disease and the brain, it may not be true. And I'm curious what your thoughts are. And Rich, I'd like you to weigh in too if you have any thoughts on this, because Lyme disease causes essentially you have bugs in the brain. It goes through your blood-brain barrier. It infects the brain. So you have all of this stuff going on, and it can cause dementia. It can cause, all these different types of cognitive decline diseases.
Yeah,
Then,
and inflammation.
And inflammation. Then because of that, right, you now have autoimmune encephalitis because you're breaking down that blood-brain barrier. Your innate immune system and the immune system that addresses the brain is now damaged. So you have autoimmune encephalitis, which is another thing going on. And then because potentially terrifying. Of all of these other things, you're more off balance, which I think all of us Lyme patients can relate, that the balance and coordination goes really bad when you're sick with Lyme, and you're banging your head and you're getting concussions left and right. So all of these things are contributing, I think, to all of your neurological symptoms. So it might not just be Lyme, it might not just be the concussions, and it might not just be the autoimmune encephalitis. I think they're all contributing factors to what you were experiencing. But all of your neurologists and doctors are saying, "Oh, you had a concussion. Oh, this is from your concussion. Oh, you're, it's psychological. You're bipolar, right?" But I think,
or even the Lyme doctors, all of this is just Lyme. So like you had to take account the brain injuries, the Lyme disease, the other like it was everything. It wasn't just one thing, and it all breaks you down, and then Lyme kind of takes over because it can.
Right. So
it's really rough. Yeah.
But so how do you identify if you're listening to this podcast or, we're trying to help people?
Yes.
We just interviewed a doctor last week, and one of the things he shared with me was that many Lyme patients that aren't your typical psychological patients, when given any of these medications that generally work for people that are bipolar or, have disassociation or have these, these different psychological problems, the medication
Mhm.
doesn't work in a way they'd expect. So was that your experience where the medication
Yes.
wasn't working the way they expected it to?
Oh
And
yeah, the
that's a huge
medication made
red
me way
flag.
worse. I almost
Yes.
feel like it kicked the autoimmune encephalitis into like a flare. I feel like now that I know what that is. But I would just say what my experience was on those medications was it made everything worse. All the things that it was meant to fix, it actually made them exasperate. And then um more depressed, more panicky. And then one made me paranoid and kind of I wouldn't say I would say hallucinating more, disassociation. Definitely not knowing if I'm in real life anymore. So one of them made that way worse. And then, yeah, takes a long
Yes.
time to get them out of your system too.
It does. And it takes time for the brain to heal and for the body to heal
Yes.
and for, your nerves to heal, et cetera. So let's talk about,
Yes.
I know, and Rich, I apologize for digressing, but there's so many things I want to talk about there. Let's talk about your treatment and your diagnosis, right? So you get diagnosed, it's put
Hmm.
onto your radar, and now you have a diagnosis. What is your first plan of attack to treat all of these things? Because it sounds like you only had the Babesia diagnosis at first, or did I misunderstand that?
I had all of them except for Lyme. So the Auricula is what I call it. How do you say that?
Ehrlichia. And
Ehrlichia.
Renee, a really fun fact, you're not alone. So when we started this podcast about 5 years
Auriculia?
ago,
I'm
uh,
so bad at this. I can't say that.
yeah, Ehrlichia. So like
Ehrlichia.
Ehrlichia. So don't
Okay.
feel bad. So
I
one
always
of
say the E one because it's hard for me.
Ewan, one
Yeah.
of our good friends in the community shared with us, Jenny Bataccio, who's a writer, shared with us that Ehrlichia is so uncommon and not talked about that it's not even in the dictionary in Microsoft Word. So if you were to type Ehrlichia into Word, it comes up as a typo because it doesn't recognize it as being a real thing, which is so crazy, right? So it's
Probably
real,
because they
but
can't
it's
say it.
yeah.
You can't go, hey Google, what's
Yeah, what are you saying?
Yeah.
So now
Siri can't help you with that.
yeah. So you got Babesia from South Africa. You got your Ehrlichia, Bartonella, cytomegalovirus. You said mono,
Streptococcus,
EBV, all this
mono,
stuff, right?
Lyme.
All
Yeah.
this stuff going on.
EBV. Yeah.
What is your doctor telling you to do, and how are you treating it now that you have a diagnosis?
So when I brought in all those papers and just was desperate at that point, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. And my friend mentioned this and she was like, honey, I'm sorry it took you so long to get here, but you have Lyme, you're in latest stage when you start treatment right away. So but by right away, she meant that day, which I did not plan on. And a lot of this is a blur because of how sick I was. But I know it was the IV treatments from the start because she did say she does antibiotic a lot of times with Lyme patients, or she does the more natural methods. And she was like, and I let them usually make their own choices. She's like, but given the state your body is in, I would suggest not doing the antibiotics. I feel like it would be very dangerous for you. And I sat there and I said, if I was your daughter, what would you do? And she said, I wouldn't do antibiotic. And I said, okay, I trust you. Let's do what you want to do. Even though I'd never done them before. So I started doing all these different IVs, probably everything from ozone to high dose vitamin C to, I don't know, a lot of different IVs, Myers, all this stuff.
Yeah.
um, I
So
got way worse though. I almost died doing all that.
why do you think that is?
I wish I had more answers to this, but what I did learn is my body doesn't detox on its own. And even doing ion foot bath and different things, it wasn't enough to get everything out. So you're killing, 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 killing. And I have so much to kill off. The die off was way too intense for my body. It couldn't handle it. And I went down fast. I was way worse than I started out when I walked in that office.
Renee, what I love about this interview so far is you're like, I have no idea. I wish I could answer that. And then you answered it perfectly. So just know you're like, I don't know when you give a good answer, right? So, your brain
Well,
fog.
that's my guess from all these years. And I'm like, that's my best guess from knowing my body.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Doing this for over 5 years, we
Yeah.
strongly concur with that assessment.
Well, because she did the IVs, and the hardest thing on me was this herb mixture. It was just a drink. And she's like, you're going to make these herbs. It was wormwood, black walnut, all the things. And I had to drink it. And I would like seize. I mean, I was shaking, convulsing, like it was insane. And I started losing like just losing all of my skin in my face, like sinking in on one side. Not even taking in any nutrient. I mean, it was just bad. Wasn't absorbing nutrients either. So everything was just going downhill so quickly. I couldn't keep up. Yeah.
So our listeners have heard this before, but Rich and I have put together a framework or a formula for healing Lyme based on our observations of interviewing over 500 people and on the podcast and speaking to thousands of people over the last 5 years, which is PARM. So, we have multiple steps, but we've learned that the first step is always prehab, right? It's not the kill, because what you did is you did heavy duty herbs that were killing, which made you toxic, but you couldn't detox, and therefore you became worse. Your symptoms were far worse, right? So in our experience, you have to rebuild the body, open up your drainage pathways, support your liver, try to get some movement in to get your lymphatic system moving. And there's a lot of things you can do in that prehab phase before you go into what we call the assist phase, which is assisting the immune system and killing off microbes, whether it's a bacteria, a virus, right? Because let's be real, mono, most people have. You have EBV for life. You had an activated EBV because you were immune compromised. So that's something we all have, but it was probably sky high. Cytomegalovirus is the same thing. You get that, you have it for life, but if you're compromised, it's going to flare and make you very sick. Now, Lyme plus all these things, if we kind of rebuild and prehab, which is why we call it prehab, the body, you're going to respond less aggressively as you start to kill off these other microbes and, come into that kill phase of the protocol. So in hindsight, looking back, do you think that's a good approach that we have formed, Rich and I?
Yes, I love that, because I learned that you really had to build your body up. Like, some people can have Lyme and they don't go downhill with Lyme. They can kind of function. I've heard that a lot of people have Lyme that don't know they have Lyme. And then I functioned for a long time, kind of. But but I would say that if your body is strong, if your immune's strong, your gut is strong, if you're detoxing, I think that you can handle infections better. Your body can fight them off better. And if you do try and attack them, you can actually handle the attack. So down the road, I didn't focus on killing. I focused on building my body up cell level.
So
made a big difference.
Right. So tell us what happened next. So in, chronological order here, you go in pretty hard and you feel worse. How do you pivot? Are you staying with this doctor and trying something else, or are you going to another doctor and pivoting altogether?
At this point, I was getting a lot worse. I didn't think I should live on my own anymore in LA. I had an opportunity. A lady reached out from my parents' Bible study in Atlanta and was like, "Hey, I have this house on a lake. That's nice." And she was like, "Would you want to house sit for us? We don't use it except for summer, and you can be closer to your parents. You can go see doctors in Atlanta. I'm sure you could find a recommendation from the one in LA and get the help you need, still do acting with your agents here." And I was like, well, I did want to move back to work with my agent in Atlanta. I felt like the work was better and I'd be closer to home. And LA was tough, and I was just kind of ready to not be doing that hustle on my own and the grind, and my body couldn't take the grind anymore. I was basically pushing my body when it was telling me to slow down, and I'd pushed it till I couldn't push anymore. And that was the kind of person I was, very driven, did not say no. Uh, Pushed myself really hard, yeah.
Well,
so I did the same in healing though, so it came in handy with that, but wasn't good when I was trying to not do Lyme. And even when I got diagnosed, I asked her, I was like, can you refer me to someone in Atlanta? And she recommended someone. I wasn't in a wheelchair and stuff yet, so I thought I could still act when I got there. I just thought I could still do life, and Lyme would be on the side, and I'd kick it in 6 months and get back to life. That was my plan. I had a 6-month plan, and a plan to where that would be my side thing and I would be living. And I'm not saying no to life. I'm going to keep saying yes, and it's not getting in the way. I'm not going to stop. And then my body eventually was like, we're done. So, yeah.
So keep walking us through your journey here. So now you move into this lake house. You're there. What happens?
I'm in Atlanta. I'm working with a doctor there, but she's doing the same exact stuff they did in LA, except a little bit more intense, actually, even stronger. I'm still doing sauna and stuff, but it was, oh man, I went down so quickly. And at this point, I couldn't function. I couldn't live on my own. I was disassociating while driving my car. I didn't remember how I got places or how I got home. I'd get home and be like, wow, I drove today. Like I don't remember. I shouldn't have been on the road. I feel sorry for those cars. I'm grateful I'm alive. But But yeah, so I was driving, shouldn't have been driving, trying to live on my own. At this point, my parents were starting to come up more to Atlanta. It was a 2.5, 3 hour drive from where we were in South Carolina. Um, I had a friend come in the middle of the night because my head pain was so intensely bad that I was screaming and I was like shaking on the floor. And he put me in my hyperbaric chamber that someone loaned to me, that I had at the house. And that was the only thing that would help me. And I stayed in it until the pain came down and I knew who I was again. Um, it was awful. I was really suffering, but I was still auditioning, and I actually had just gotten a huge role in a TV series. As I had a call back, and I was right about to get it, and I had to make the decision to take care of my health and leave everything. And it was heartbreaking. I cried in Cheesecake Factory, writing a journal prayer, asking why I have to leave everything I love. It was awful. And then the waiter was like, "Why are you crying?" and brought me cheesecake. And I was like, "It's not you and it's not the food. It's just, anyway, I'm
It's
sick."
life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So then
now
I moved
you're
home, and my parents started being my caregivers, and I was at that point in a wheelchair and very weak and very sick. And anyways, the doctor in Atlanta gave up on me. The doctor in LA gave up on me, and they both told me to go to a center where I looked at the center and they were going to do what I was doing, but double the amount. And I knew I would die. I just knew if I did this, I was gonna die. And um, I started thinking, I was like, if they gave up on me, should I give up on me? And then I was like, what would I do if I was in my right mind? And if I wasn't sick, what would I do? I was like, I would fight. And so like I got on Instagram and I Googled like remission Lyme and went insane. And I found this girl who had done stem cells in LA and got in remission. And I reached out to her and she got back to someone she didn't know in her DMs at 2 a.m. and was like, it'll be the hardest thing you've ever done. It's harder than chemo, but it'll give you a chance. And I was like, that's all I need. I need like a Hail Mary. I need a chance. And the next day I woke up and in the morning I was watching a talk show and Kelly Osbourne was on there sharing how she had had seizures and neurological Lyme, was in remission from the stem cell place that girl recommended the night before at 2 a.m. And I just went, here's your sign,
Renee, real quick.
And
Are you
I,
comfortable sharing the name of the person you reached out to on Instagram?
Fontaine,
Who was it?
Fontaine.
Fontaine. Okay. And what was the facility in California that they went to for their stem cells?
Oh,
Is that where you went, or you went somewhere else?
it's where I went. It's in Beverly Hills. It's a very famous one that a lot of people got messed up at. And I'm trying to think the name.
Oh,
Um,
Rich, help me. Was it Infusio or my
yeah, Infusio. Thank you.
Infusio? Okay.
Infusio. It I don't know how to answer this question because I have a lot of people reach out to me. They've been to Infusio. I'm actually talking to a girl's mom after this podcast to try and help her out because her diaphragm's paralyzed and she hasn't been able to speak for 2 years. Um, and from stem cells, so she's asking me what to do. So I did the stem cells there. But they told me not to do anything else, not to do supplements, not to detox, just let the stem cells do their work. So I'm bedridden and getting more bedridden. And stem cells really, I don't know if they saved my life, but still really hurt my body and apparently reinfected because they were my own cells. So it wasn't my best chance, but I'm alive. So I don't regret it necessarily. I feel like it did play a part in healing, but after talking to Fontaine later, they didn't realize that some people are very different and cannot detox. Like her body has that genetic non-detox thing and mine does too. So here we are like doing heavy duty stem cells, a whole bunch of them, changing the whole, structure of your blood and all that, and not being able to move anything out that was bad and not supporting with supplements or any nutrients of any kind. And Infusio learned that was a mistake. But we did it before they knew that.
Yeah, but I also want to say, we always call it the recency bias, where we don't, I think everything you did led up to your success that you're at
That's
today.
how
We're going
I
to
feel.
continue
That's why I
on.
don't
So,
regret it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't regret anything in your journey, because who knows the positive impacts it had. And maybe you could have done it a
Yeah.
little bit differently to be a little bit more effective, but I still believe strongly that it had great value in helping you.
I
It may have
believe
been
it
a little bit
saved my
easier.
life.
Yep.
I feel like it saved my life just enough to keep me alive. And then I had to, from there, find more pieces to the puzzle. But I don't regret treatments I did, like you're saying, because they all led me further. Like some might have pushed me back, but then another one pushed me forward. So I don't know. I think everything played a part in me being here today.
Yeah. So tell us what it was like to get the stem cells. Do they inject them? What that experience is like, and then how you felt after, and then after that, what you did next in your healing journey.
So at Infusio, they did a prep before they give you stem cells, which was smart. They did like a 10-pass ozone, and they did anything they could to help the body be prepped for stem cells to really help you be strong in your on a cell level. So it was like high dose vitamin C, 10-pass ozone, glutathione. It was all I did NAC, I think, because I don't handle glutathione like a lot of people. Yeah, we did a lot of different IVs. And then they did the IV stem cell. So it was IV. That was the first round of stem cells I did. And then you come back and do another round. And so I came back and did the second round. And then my brain was getting worse behind the scenes. So I knew other people who did stem cells that were doing a lot better, that were part of my little group that we went at the same time. But I was getting worse, my brain especially. And I was like, there's got to be more to the puzzle going on with my brain. And I was looking at Netflix trying to see what to watch. And I saw this Brain on Fire, had a picture of a girl in a bed, wrapped head. And I was like, that's me. So I saw it was based on true story. I didn't want to watch the trailer. So I saw it was based on a true story. Then I wanted to make sure she was alive. Then I found out she was alive. Then I was like, okay, I'll look at YouTube. And I found her do a speech thing because I didn't need to watch the movie. I didn't need to terrify myself anymore. I was already out of my head. So I knew I was experiencing it. Then I listened to her talk and I was like, that's me. So that's when I knew I had the autoimmune encephalitis piece. And it took 9 months from realizing that to get into a doctor that could diagnose that.
Wow. So you knew about it from Brain on Fire, but yet it took you 9 months to find a doctor to properly diagnose you with the
Yeah.
encephalitis. Okay. So now once you found this doctor, what were you doing to treat that from that point forward?
So it's interesting. So at Infusio, the person who did my stem cells, that doctor, she mentioned Amen clinics to me and said, you should probably check them out. But I kept thinking, no, I just have Lyme. So once I get rid of Lyme, I'll be fine. So I just thought it's just all Lyme and it has nothing to do with my brain anymore. So I ignored like that advice. And then my brain gets worse. And I go to a doctor in Atlanta, a different doctor in Atlanta. She runs tests, insane test. Like I can't remember how many vials of blood I gave. I think she said it was 47 or something. Yeah, and I was barely functioning. I was in a wheelchair. My parents rolled me in, and I was like just sitting there, just getting my blood drawn like crazy. And then I was deficient in everything. I mean, it was just a broken body. And she gave me so many supplements. I had a tub of them. I've learned now that that's not good. But I was doing a huge amount of daily supplements. I can't even begin to understand how I did that. And then I came back to her getting worse, and this is after I saw the Netflix thing, and I'd seen a few neurologists at this point, and all of them didn't like the fact that I said I had Lyme and treated me like a crazy person and different things like that. And I know that they just don't understand it, and that's okay. But at the time, it was really hard because I told him, I was like, you can call it lemons, you can call it watermelon, you can call it whatever you want. I don't care what you call it. I just need your help. And I was like, I really think I have encephalitis. I want these tests run. I'd done the research at this point. And they were like, if you had encephalitis, you would be paralyzed. Like they were just naming all the things I would be, and I'm not. And so I was like, they wouldn't see me. And then I saw this top neurologist in the country, drove out of state to see him. And he told my dad that I must be on drugs since I was a model in LA and I have MS and he's not God, but the closest I'll ever come to it. And I have MS and I'm on drugs and this is all in my head and take me home. And at that point, I thought about taking my life because this is 9 months of knowing I have something and no one is taking me seriously or treating me for it. And I was ready to give up. And then people in my parents' Bible study said, can you just wake up tomorrow? Can you do like one more day? And I was like, yeah, I can wake up again tomorrow. And I did. And somebody reached out again, said I'm in clinics again. And then I went to the doctor in Atlanta that had done all the vials. I had seen the Brain on Fire thing. I showed up in her office and I actually went out of my head and was screaming, didn't know who my parents were. And most people would have put you in an insane probably a psychiatric hospital for that, but she actually had just watched the movie, told me she thought I had that. I told her I thought I had that, and she was like, honey, I can't help you, but I'm gonna try and find someone who can. She referred Amen clinics, and I finally went there.
Well, so how many people did it take to recommend Amen clinics before you went there? It sounds like 7. I mean,
Three.
three. No, I'm only asking because, I'm fascinated by them, and so is Rich. We've had some
They're
rock stars on.
amazing.
So
Amazing.
I'll tell you, Dr. Brian
Oh.
Plant, we've had him on the podcast. Spectacular, going into the details about autoimmune encephalitis, how Lyme
Yeah.
impacts the brain, everything we talked about before, the concussions, the encephalitis, the Lyme, all that stuff. He will break
Send me
down.
a link to that episode. I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
I want to
Off the
watch
hook.
that one so bad.
Brian Plant, and then also Dr. Ebony Cornish is another one. Oh my goodness, they were off the hook, and they're both Lyme specialists, Lyme brain specialists at the Amen Clinic. So anybody listening should watch that,
Awesome.
and we'll send it to you as well, Renee. So
Yes, do it.
tell us what that was like going to see the Amen Clinic and how that was different.
Oh, okay. So I actually had it scheduled to go see this doctor in Seattle, that did believe me, that was going to do all this stuff, and then she told me to get a SPECT scan done. And the only place I found that I could do that was Amen. And so I called them, but I knew I needed the testing to find out if I had encephalitis. The place in Seattle was going to do a spinal tap. We had all this planned out. We had a week I was going to go, all the things, but I never booked the ticket. I don't know why. Well, I don't know why now, but at the time I just never quite felt like it was time to go. Well, I called Amen and I was like, hey, I want to get a SPECT scan. They think I also have autoimmune encephalitis, but I know I have Lyme. Can you guys test for that? And she was like, yeah, we do that all the time. And I was like, what, really? And then she's like, and we just now have a specialist that works with Lyme, and they had just added them. And so she was like, it's a good time to come. And so my parents drove me out to Atlanta. I was really weak when I got there, and got in the office and did the test, had the brain scan and all that. And I had Dr. Ali. I love him. And Dr. Ali, and he knew right away that I had autoimmune encephalitis. And he was like, you definitely have it. And he's like, even your sleep and wake, your brain is still inflamed. And what did they call it? Well, it is the brain on fire thing, but he showed me the diamond, and that diamond means your brain is on fire. And I have my brain scans pictures. I might have sent them to you, I'm not sure, but I have them, and it shows how insanely inflamed and messed up my brain was. And the temporal was mad on fire, and that causes the disassociation, hallucination, seizures, all this stuff. So that was fun.
Renee, what's the full name of your doctor from the Amen Clinic? You said Dr. Ali. How do you say his
Dr.
full name?
Ali, Ali.
Okay. Is
And
that his
he's
first or last name?
I think it's his last name. I forget. I just called him Dr. Ali, and then I had Dr. Philaday. They partnered together. So
Got it.
Philaday worked on the Lyme side, and Dr. Ali worked on the brain side, and then they both worked on the autoimmune.
Got it. So now that they've validated what you already knew, which is very frustrating, and I think unfortunately too many of us go through that. What are they doing to help you? Because you still have this crazy brain inflammation, right?
Yeah.
And you did all the stem cells, you were trying to treat the microbes, your brain is still inflamed, you're trying to get all the pieces of the puzzle to get better. What are they doing to help you?
So from the brain scans alone and my story, Dr. Ali recognized that I had autoimmune encephalitis. He also said that me not going the antibiotic route saved my life. So he actually affirmed what that lady who diagnosed me said at the beginning. And I knew in my spirit, I just knew. But anyways, he told me that, and I was like, oh, okay. And I just felt at peace with him. I just knew he could help me. And anyway, so he partnered with Dr. Philaday. They did the blood work though with the Mayo Clinic. So they sent the autoimmune encephalitis panel was done not through a spinal tap. They just did it through blood work through Mayo Clinic. And I had 3 types of autoimmune encephalitis. 2 infectious, 1 non-infectious, and they don't know why the non-infectious was even there.
Crazy. So
Yeah.
how do you treat this? How do you what are your steps to actually now calm the brain down, put out the fire and help and get this final piece of the puzzle? What are you doing?
So one thing that I really like and tell a lot of people with brain inflammation to use, and of course check with your doctor, but for me, SPM Active was huge. It's like a peptide that takes down my inflammation. If I get a flare, I use it right away, and it helps every time. But it couldn't tackle the amount I had going on at this time. So it's more of a maintenance kind of thing, but it does help. So I did that. I did like hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I did trying to think everything we did at that time, because later I did peptides and a whole bunch of stuff and more stem cells. So, but through Amen clinics alone, it was hyperbaric oxygen therapy and it was SPM active, and then they were supporting and treating other things that were causing more autoimmune issues as well. And then I eventually went out to California and did treatment in person out there in Amen and stayed, because that's the one in Orange County can actually do all the IVs and all the stuff. So I did a lot there. Did pretty much everything they had there.
What did you do on site in California?
PK protocol.
That's the
That helps.
Patricia Kane protocol, right?
Yeah, that was incredible. I mean, that was the first time I felt present. It was awesome. I could drive again. And it had been, I want to say 3 years at that point of bedridden treatment stuff. Before I went out there. Three or four, but I think 3. But yeah, so I went out there, did PK protocol with them. I did some frequency type stuff that my body responded really well to. Neurofeedback, that was a huge one. Love neurofeedback. Yeah, I did a lot of stuff with Amen. I'm trying to remember everything, but on site I know I did PK protocol.
And did that help? So it sounds like after the on-site visit, that's when you really felt like you had your brain back and you were in a better place. Is that true?
Yes, I did. And then they, gosh, okay. So I saw Amen clinics, didn't go in person yet. Was working with Amen clinics. The moment I was diagnosed with autoimmune encephalitis, when I was in a wheelchair, close to dying from autoimmune encephalitis, but I had a hyperbaric chamber at home, so I was using that daily. And that was keeping my inflammation down for sure. I got asked, the Miss America pageant reached out. And she was like, "You've been sharing your story. I'm really inspired by you. I feel like you should compete in Miss Tennessee." And I was like, I don't see how that's possible. I'm in a wheelchair. I weigh I think under 90 pounds at that point, maybe 91. And I was like, and I just got diagnosed with a fatal brain disease, so I'm pretty sure I can't do it. And I was planning to tell her no, and everything I said, she would kind of come back. She was like, "Well, I went through cancer and it helped so many people, and so that's okay. You can compete in a wheelchair." And I was like, "Okay, well, my brain doesn't function that well." And she's like, "We'll have people there to walk you." And I was like, "I don't have the income to do this." And she was like, "We'll get sponsors and I'll waive this fee." And I was like, "Well, my license isn't even in Tennessee anymore, or I don't live in Tennessee anymore. I'm with my parents." She's like, "Do you have a license that's Tennessee?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Then you can do it." So I get off the phone and my friend goes, "What just happened?" I was like, "I think I'm in a pageant." Like, so I hadn't even started. I just started treatment, just got diagnosed, and found out I was gonna do Miss Tennessee. Yep.
So did you get, from the time you got the phone call to the time of actually doing the competition, was there a significant gain in your health because of the aiming clinics?
Yes, I was starting to gain the ability to go out there, and I wasn't doing killing. I was just doing lymphatic detox, all the things that were helping my body, supporting my body to go out there. Some of my sponsors and hairstylists and stuff, they knew what I was going through. Everybody knew what I was going through. So they basically like dressed me, changed me, pushed me on the stage. I just did the walk. But like I didn't feel present yet. I was in and out of present. So I was still very disassociated quite a bit. So a lot of people just helped me to do it. So I don't remember really being on the stage, and I wish I did because I really wanted to remember the moment. But I know I did it, and I always tell people like I felt like I needed to trust God with the health piece, but I needed to keep saying yes to life because I was alive, you know.
Yeah.
And I actually won the community service award, and I was like, "How's that possible? I haven't been in the community." And she's like, "For everybody you helped online by sharing your story." And I was helping a lot of people with Lyme at the time, and so they recognized that in the pageant. And then I won the director's choice and all this stuff. It was amazing.
How cool. So you won the Director's Choice and the Community Service Award for everything you did to give back to help people while still sick, never mind where you are today.
Yes, and I was community service from bed, and I was like,
That's
because you feel like going from I don't know, doing missions, and I did speaking engagements. I spoke at conferences. I helped youth. I was performing. So going from all that to my bed, I felt like, how am I worth anything? Like, I can't contribute to society. Where's my value? Like, I really had to dig deep, and eventually, for me as a Christian, my identity was as God's daughter, and that's my value, and that's enough. And so I sat in that, and I would actually like text people if my brain was okay and I was present. I would send them whatever was inspiring me at that moment, and I would send it to people with Lyme that I knew, and I'd do a post online, sharing my journey and my suffering and everything that I didn't want to be open about, because that was career suicide for what I did. But I knew it could help other people, and I helped people from where I was, and I learned that my value wasn't in what I could do and everything that I can contribute. It was just that, I'm worth it because I'm alive and I'm here. And as long as I have air in my lungs and a beating heart, I told myself that every day, then I have purpose and I'm supposed to be here. And I fought. I just fought through every day, but it was suffering 24/7 every
Yeah,
day.
but it was your faith and your perseverance and your attitude, frankly, that allowed you to get through it, because most
Yes,
people, probably 99.9% of other people, wouldn't be able to get through what you got through. So that's a testament to you personally. So walk me through real quick, before Rich picks back up what you did from that point, from the the show and treating with aiming clinics through the present date, to kind of get yourself into the place you're in now. Because clearly, before I even finish that question, I have to comment. I was listening before to you and Rich, like, oh, I'm a little brain foggy. I'm not doing so great with my speech today, and you're telling me
Yeah.
that, but like you're killing it. I mean, this podcast
Thank
interview has been
you.
wonderful. You are doing
I'm
a
in a
brilliant,
flare
brilliant
because
job.
I've
We would never
had
know it.
3 rounds of antibiotics and I can't kick mastitis, and it's flaring everything right now. So I'm actually in a flare, but the same with saying yes to the pageant. And I have friends that I talk to this about, they have Lyme, and you can't wait until you feel better to live. Like, you just can't wait to start living when you feel up to doing something. You have to say yes where you're at, and then just trust that you can adapt. Like, you can find ways to adapt and focus on what you are capable of and not what you're not capable of. And mindset is huge in this, and faith
Yeah,
that you can do it. And I trusted that God would meet me there, and I would just have to show up. And so I just kept showing up, and I almost canceled today because I had no color in my face earlier today. I almost passed out this morning. I'm taking care of a baby. I didn't know if I could do both, and I called and got into the doctor, got to see them, told them what's going on. We're trying to figure that out. And then also got an IV while she laid on my chest, and decided that I'm not saying no because this can help people. And it reminds me of that's how I went through Lyme, that
yeah,
I kept saying yes to life. I kept saying yes to living. I tried to live as normal as I could, and I did not try and identify with the disease. I never let Lyme be my identity. I think that's key, because I think
yep,
when you start identifying with a sickness, it takes over your whole life, and you lose who you are and
yeah.
what you are capable of, and that you matter, and that you have dreams that can happen. I kept a dream list. I actually started a miracle list from the day I got diagnosed, because I knew it was going to get harder. And I was so not present. And I was like, okay, I can look at everything as coincidence or everything as a miracle. And I can choose to wrestle with God and not trust God, because I've been there in my life from traumas and things. And I was like, but I need you. Can't do this without you. So I'm just going to choose to trust you, trust that you're good. And I'm going to look at everything as a miracle. And I kept a list of everything that came together, everything good, random card that encouraged, a song that I needed to hear at the moment, a treatment that came through, everything for 4 years.
Be- love that answer. So walk us through what you
Sorry, it
did
was long.
from no, it was beautiful. Walk us through what you did from the pageant through the present date, as far as additional things and treatments to get yourself in the place you're in now. And then
Okay.
Rich is gonna jump in and talk to you about it. I mean, because we have to touch on the fact that you were this sick and you had your child, right? I really want to make sure we highlight that, because
Yeah,
that's really inspirational as
that's the
well.
coolest thing ever.
And yes, you kind of give us that little delta of all the treatments from that point to the present date, and then Rich
Yeah.
is gonna pick it up from there.
Yeah. So pageant, then discovered mold, a lot of mold illness after the pageant, because when I was away from the house, I did a little better. As soon as I got home, my body erupted. And I found out that you can live in mold because your body kind of thinks it's there and it's always there. And when you leave it for a while and then enter back into it, your body will recognize that, hey, this is toxic because you were out of the toxic. So I always did better at the beach, or I did better away. And doing the pageant, I did a little bit better. And then I got way worse. My body erupted. My nervous system went insane, seizures, out of my head, everything. And I knew it was the house. I literally ran outside the house, sat in the grass, and was like, Mom, something's in the house. Like, I can't be in this house. And she was like, okay. And I already had a trip planned to LA to do some brain treatments and stay with my friend Kathy, that had Lyme, that told me about Lyme, that I probably had Lyme. So I already had plans to go out there. So I went out there, they had testing done, found mold in the house, found mold in my body. I had the mycotoxin panel done right before I left because we were like, something's in the house. So my doctor ran that. I get to LA, and that's where Amen is in person, and where they can do all the stuff. I had people drive me into Orange County. I took Uber rides into Orange County, and I did treatment, I think 4 days a week, in person with them. And that's where I did PK protocol, finally felt present, was doing all the things. And then I had an option to do hard chamber, high dose hyperbaric oxygen. I'm like, yeah, that's going to save my life. So I'm like, I should do that. But I didn't tell Amen clinics because I didn't want them to tell me no. And that was really dumb. So I would like to share with people that if you want to do a treatment and you have doctors you trust that are helping you and you're making progress, tell them what you're going to do. Don't be like me. So I went and did it, and I hit it hard like I usually do. And they're not equipped with Lyme and autoimmune like Amen is. So they told me to do it daily. I told later what I did to my doctor, and he was like, that's why you're in crisis again. I would have told you to do it, but at this pace. And I just did it too hard. And I went back into crisis over that. And also, by this point, my parents had to sell their house, or they did. They chose to sell their house, move into one, have non-toxic pain, all the things done. Huge blessing. Moved me back in, and I started going downhill again. I was in crisis again. So I'd made progress and then went back down.
So how did you get from there to here? What were the steps?
Okay, so then since I shared my journey on Facebook and all the things, there's a lady that was following my journey, she and her husband, and she said it was just breaking her heart to watch me keep going up and down, up and down. So she reached out and said, my husband has a clinic. I've had Lyme for years, seizures, all the things, and I'm in remission. I'm like bike riding with my kids. I just had a baby, all the things. And I was like, this is amazing, or bike riding, And they gifted it to me pretty much at cost. So my parents flew me out to Kansas, or drove me out to Kansas City, I believe it was, where I did it. And it was around Christmas time, and it looked like a Hallmark village, and it was snowing, and it was beautiful out there. And I did what are those stem cells called? I did the umbilical cord stem cells. And that time they did it for brain intranasal, they did IV, and they really prepped my body for it. They did way more than just at Infusio. We did 2 weeks of prep, and they did all that for free to give me a chance to live. And I started healing after that, and they just started doing peptides. So I did peptide injections. I did ones that were for brain. I did some that were for autoimmune, to help my immune system, thymus, all the things, gut. And from there, I really started making progress. And then I kind of plateaued, hit a little crisis again. And my doctor, who's a godsend to me, Dr. Jeff Katelski in Minnesota, is like the best thing that ever happened to me, him and Amen Clinics. And he still works with me and helps me all the time. I'm like a daughter to him now. But he told my parents, he was like, can you get her into neurofeedback? Can she start tomorrow? And they were like, yeah, we can take her. So they took me to that the very next day. And all I prayed was that a light would turn on in my brain again, because I was going catatonic at home. And a light turned on, and I started healing. And then I did this upper cervical neck kind of adjusting stuff. It's kind of scary. They snap it, but I was terrified of it, but I tried it because he told me to, and that partnered with neurofeedback allowed me to really start healing enough to where I was able to move out on my own, move to Nashville. And yeah, that's when I started life again. And then I can share that part because that's fun. That's a good
So let's
journey.
do that. So now talk about how you were able to share life again, and also share with us how you began to contribute to the community at a higher level.
Yeah. So I was really scared to move out on my own because I'd been cared for at their house for 4 years at this point. So I was really, really scared. And everybody said, "What are you afraid of?" I was like, relapsing. And they're like, because I did after the pageant, I did after LA. So I was so scared to go into crisis again and them not be there. And they were like, "Well, if you relapse, you can always come home." And I was like, "That's true." So I went and I was like, let's try this. So I moved out and my parents helped me for a while so that I could have rent and
Right.
All right, so Renee, we had a little bit of a blip. Can you take up from where we left off, where you were sharing with us that you began to live life again?
I know that's the good part. Sure. Okay. Um, so I decided to take a chance and try life again. And I was scared. I was scared that I might relapse. I was scared that my family wouldn't be there to take care of me. But I wanted to try. I wanted to see what I'm capable of doing. And so I moved out again. And because I tried after the pageant, tried LA, and always went back into crisis. So obviously it was scary. But I did move out. And I did have health issues, but I never went back into crisis. I was always able to still maintain living on my own. I was able to care for myself. I was able to get food I need. I was able to grocery shop again. I had to learn how to drive again. I had to learn how to work with my nervous system and driving. My doctors were like, try driving down the driveway, try driving up the street and back. So it was like a slow progression of learning all those things again. Um, Sorry, my baby is crying in the background, but that's part of this exciting part. Um, so so I started driving. I went grocery shopping with a friend, learned how to do that again. Went on a date with my now husband because he actually reached out because I was helping people with their brain health. So when I was sick at home, um, he was like, "Hey, I'm a former addict and healing my brain from that." And I was like, "Oh, I love brain stuff." So we would FaceTime, and he was kind of the light of my day. So as I was in the healing part, which was 2020s when I started healing. So the world shut down when I was ready to go out in it, and that didn't feel fair. Um,
It wasn't
but
fair.
no. We started talking in like November of 2020, and then I moved out in February, right around Valentine's Day. And so we went on our first date, and he actually helped me learn how to drive where I didn't have to use highways. And I would say like having him in my life helped me feel like I can start trying things because I had someone there that was there for me. Um, but after the first date, I actually kind of, I guess you would say, ghosted him for a few months. But it's really because I was very afraid that I didn't know how to do life again on my own. My nerves, everything was just overwhelming, and I wanted to learn how to be on my own again. So I took a pause from all the dating. I did a course called Heart Work, which helped heal from some of the trauma and the PTSD from being sick for so long. And that helped me heal more too. So everything kind of helped with healing. It was physical, it was heart healing, it was a little bit of everything. And I'm trying to think. Okay, so then somebody that did dance, she taught at a school, and she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I need someone to fill in for me as a dance teacher." And I was like, "Okay, I've been learning how to walk again, drive again. Like, there's no way I can dance. I know you don't know my story, but I can't." And I told her a little bit. She's like, "I really feel like you could. And you don't have to choreograph it. You're just going to show up and watch the kids." And I was like, "So I don't have to dance or choreograph. I just watch them." And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, we'll try." So I fill in for her, and I feel like I'm going to pass out. It was very hard. I got very dizzy. Like my nervous system was just haywire. And I thought to myself, like, I looked into another treatment thing where they heal your brain. It showed me all the vestibular stuff they do and everything. And I was like, well, that's kind of like dance because that's that's movement, that's music, that's lights, that's kind of everything. So maybe I can heal by doing that again. And so I decided to keep showing up, even though I would really have a hard time. And I never passed out. I just felt like I was going to. So the kids were okay. But slowly I built up I don't know what you would say. I built up the ability to adapt to be able to do it. It was like every time I would show up again and again and again, my nervous system started working with me, and I was able to get more ability to do the things. So she ended up getting COVID, and she had a musical to choreograph, and she was like, hey, can you choreograph Bye Bye Birdie? I need 4 dances in 48 hours. And she's like, I wouldn't ask, but I can't do it. And I was like, well, I guess we're about to find out, because I hadn't choreographed in years and I didn't think I could do it. I had no idea what was going to happen. And I listened to the music, and all of a sudden I was choreographing again, and I choreographed all the dances and choreographed a full musical and took over for her. And that was my first job.
That's really cool. That's a really cool story. So you started to develop, I guess, like neurological endurance. You were developing new pathways, and then
Yeah.
you got to the point where some of the old pathways that had no longer been available to you were reignited, and now
Yeah.
you are back to where you are. And so congratulations.
Yeah.
Really cool. So
And
tell us
my
about.
nervous system was also working better. And I'd done the neurofeedback, I'd done more sessions than they ever recommend, but they did that with me previously. So I was really set to start trying things again. And I did adapt by showing up over and over. So I tell people, even when it feels hard and scary and you feel like, oh no, this is hurting me, a lot of times it's not. It's just you have to learn, your body has to learn it can do things again, and your brain, and it all kind of starts to work together with you. But
Yeah.
you have to push yourself enough to challenge yourself,
Yeah.
but not over the edge.
And it's beautiful that we have these, these neurally plastic brains, right? Your neuroplasticity
Yeah.
allowed you to retrain your brain, and you were able to adapt, right? The adaptive nature
Hmm.
of being a human started to serve you, and all these connections started to come back again for you. So tell us about what you did after that first job, and after you choreographed that first job with
Yeah.
within 48 hours. How did that develop, and how did you reconnect
Right.
with your husband?
Okay. So I had actually reconnected with him before that job, I believe. I'd have to ask him, but I think it was before. But anyways, the job though, I was able to do it. I choreographed a whole musical. I had so much fun. I literally just started feeling like me again. It was just awesome. My miracle list that I kept when I was really sick on that was that I would be married, because I had a vision when I a couple of times when I was close to dying and stuff from the illness. I had a vision of me in a wedding gown, and I held on to that. And then there was another point where they thought I had something that was a fatal disease part of my journey. And turned out I didn't have that one, but I was going through testing and testing for strokes at the time and everything. And I had a vision of me with 2 kids. And so I held on to these, that these were possible until I wasn't here anymore. Like if I was still here, that this was for me. So so it's really cool because also on that miracle list, I had those written down, and I had perform in a musical, like on stage, and be a lead in a musical. And anyways, after teaching dance, I was asked to go audition for a musical as a lead. Or no, I was asked to audition for a musical, and I was like, that'll be fun. I can do background and just, be in the back and just be on stage again. That'll be a lot of fun. Well, I auditioned, and then they called me back, and they were like, we want to see you for the lead role in the musical. And I was like, should I tell them should I tell them, And then I thought to myself, no, I want to see if I can do this. And I don't want them to know everything's where it's at. I want to work on that on my own, but I want to see if I can do this. So I didn't tell them what was going on in my brain or my body. And I showed up and I auditioned. I got the part. So I was
Congratulations.
a lead in a musical, and I was in the hospital before the first show in the ER because of a flare. I went to the hospital twice, I think, during the show, and they didn't know, but the cast eventually knew, and people found out. Um, but they worked with me, and I did the whole time. So
So why don't we get to we're getting to the end of our time. As fascinating this is,
Okay, yeah.
so
So,
let's talk about the miracle, right? So you get
yeah,
married,
yeah,
and of course the greatest miracle of all these miracles when you're living your life is that that this vision of being a parent does manifest, right? You ultimately do have a baby. You get married, you get pregnant, you have.
yes. And I've
Let,
heard that pregnancy can be very healing for you. And I felt like I was supposed to prepare my body for pregnancy. So I worked on my hormones and I worked on some things for a year before I got pregnant. And then when I found out I was pregnant, I still kind of held it with an open hand because I was like, I don't know if I should get too excited. Like, I don't know if I'll lose the baby. I didn't know. So I really held it with an open hand because I lost so much in my journey. Um, and I stayed pregnant. And my gut was better than it's ever been. All of a sudden, I was absorbing nutrients really well. And my gut issues were pretty much non-existent. My brain inflammation was down. And I taught dance. So I've been a dance teacher now for 2 years and outside of that other place. So 3 years of teaching dance. And so I was teaching dance all the way up until a month before I gave birth. Had a C-section, which is a major surgery. So I thought that might send me back into Lyme stuff because surgery can do that. And it didn't. I recovered really well from a C-section and quickly and was on my feet again. And the mastitis has been really tough. But I haven't been bedridden. I haven't gone downhill in that sense. I've been done 3 rounds of antibiotics. It's been hard on me, but it hasn't taken me out like it used to. And she's the biggest blessing, just being married to my husband and having this baby girl. And she's healthy and she smiles all the time and she absorbs nutrients. And she had more hair on her head when she was born. And they said that's because she got all her nutrients she needed. They have a full head of hair. And I was like, are you serious? Because I have to take B12 injections. Like I don't even absorb B12. So everything and this little beauty is like full of life and alive and fun. And I'm just having the best time of my life. And I felt like I lost so many years, but I feel like God restored them really quickly. And yeah, she's the final part of my miracle list. She is my miracle and getting married. Yeah.
Congratulations. So we thank you for you sharing everything you shared and sharing this really beautiful story. So tell us a little bit about what you're working on now. We and maybe just specifically talk to us about the TV show you're working on.
Yeah.
And
Um,
then let us
I
know
worked, sorry,
how
what?
that's going. Yeah, let us know how that's going.
Yeah, so I worked on that when I was bedridden. Like I was working on that talk show the whole time because everything I learned that was helping my health, I wanted a talk show that spoke life into women. I felt God just called me to do that before I got sick, and so I was like, "Wow, you sure you really want me to do this? You got weird timing. Like now I'm going downhill and in crisis, and now I'm bedridden, so can't do anything." But as I was learning all the things that took me down, kind of in this unraveling. I learned all the different pieces. So the talk show and my coaching is geared towards keeping people from unraveling. And if they're on that unraveling, it helps them get back up and kind of piece the pieces together so they can have the bright life God has for them. So that's really what I feel called to do. And then I wanted to make it fun. So like I said, bedridden is so isolating and the sickness, chronic illness is very isolating and lonely. And so it feels like you're hanging with your girlfriends and it has fun things like segments on healthy eating and beauty and fitness and all the life full of life things. But it also talks about the hard things and how I renewed my mind, how I kept my mindset, my heart went through, what my journey's been like, what my friend's journey has been like, and then how we stay encouraged through it, what we did to help us have a bright life while facing hard things. So
So
that's
Renee,
really what it's about. It's a lot of fun.
that's awesome. So
Yeah, we have a
as we wind
blast.
down, can you share folks where they can see the TV program and how they can get in touch with you if they'd like to work with you in any way, including with the coaching that you do?
Yes, yeah. I've tried to launch this a few times, so I'm excited to finally really launch it. We have, I think 9 episodes filmed. We're going to release an episode a month, but you can follow the socials on TikTok and on Instagram and Facebook community, but it'll be Bright Life Co. And that Co stands for community. So it's Bright Life Community. So Bright Life Co is how you find us. And yeah, we're doing a big pre-launch, and then the launch will probably be September is the plan. Every time I got derailed is because I ended up in another car accident even after healing, and
You
pregnancy
in the cars. We got to
me
keep
in
you
the
out of
cars.
cars.
It was bad. But it just shows that even, I don't know, like even when you get knocked back down, you can still get back up again, because I got pregnant after that. So there you go. That'll encourage you.
That's awesome.
And
That's
taught
awesome.
dance another year. So, but yeah, so Bright Life Co. And you can follow all the socials and follow along with the pre-launch. You can sign up for my coaching through the website. If you're interested in that, you can DM me. I love helping people. I love hearing their stories. And anything I can do to give back, because it's one of the hardest things I ever went through, and one of the hardest things to talk about, because it is such a traumatizing time. But I learned how to have a bright life even when it was very dark. And that's what I want to give back from, is that they can too. So, and hopefully eventually retreats, because I actually like to hang out with these girls and have like girl time, and I'll do all the fun girly things. I enjoy it all.
Keep us posted on how that develops as well. So, this
Yes.
is an unbelievably powerful podcast, and we thank you for taking time away from your beautiful baby.
Yeah. Oh, and I want to add,
husband.
my co-host also is having a baby right now, and she was told she couldn't either. And she has the rheumatoid arthritis and RA and MS and stuff, and so she's still able to do all that. So
Well, congratulations to her as well. So thank you for sharing your inspiration
yeah.
with us, and please keep us posted on all the great things that you're currently working on, and you will work on in the future.
I will. Thanks for having me. I look forward to seeing those girls over there and hearing how they respond.